anybody that have a program that wants one?
I do.
Where are you at? Oh, where's she? She's in there? Oh, we wasn't a hugger.
Anybody else program?
Huh? Oh, I didn't realize that.
Oh, okay. Well, she told me, I said, I can go by and get her. All of a sudden, we can all come down together. She's not coming.
Oh my goodness. For the white boys.
All right, if everybody wants to gather around, we'll get started.
Come on, guys.
Well, welcome. We're here to remember James Madison Massay, Texas Ranger Captain, my fourth great-grandfather. I'm a member of the former Texas Ranger Association. I've got 5 direct ancestors that were Texas Rangers. James Madison Massay is one of those, and we're here to unveil his Texas Ranger Cross. So we'd like to start with the pledges, and if Matt White would like to lead us in the pledges and tell us first the line from James Madison Massay to you and how you're related.
Okay, so my name is Matt White, and I grew up here in Hunt County, and James Madison Massay had 2 wives. His first one died when she was 15. He remarried. He only had 2 girls with the first wife. Devin came from the second wife, I came from the first. He was my great-great-grandfather. My dad's grandfather or great-grandfather, and my grandmother's grandfather. My cousin Jim White over here. Where do you live, Jim?
Oklahoma.
He lives in Oklahoma. I think he's the only white around. My grandmother and his grandmother would have been, she was born 1893, so she would have been 8 when this man passed away, and she remembered him, didn't she?
Yep.
Thought very highly of him. My father, who passed away in 2017, very similar to this guy in the way they thought and their attitude, so that's one reason I want to be here today. I think we all know the American pledge, but I have to be honest, I don't do the Texas pledge enough. Does anybody know it? Let me just give it to you real quick.
Similar, but
I'm going to say it real quick and then we'll do it together. Honor the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee. Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. So can we do that together? Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee. Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Good. Now, let's do the American pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'd like to have A.L. Bear come up and say a prayer for us and introduce yourself and how you're related.
oh, sure. But I know him.
Okay.
Now, my grandmother was Clara Massay, and I'm second great-grandson of James. I'm accompanied by my oldest son, his wife, and my sister, Charlene, is coming up from Houston. She'll be here. There she is. You did make it. You told me to slow down and delay the prayer. You would be here. By golly, she knows it. Anyway, came here, when was it, Trey? 25 years ago? Right at it, Trey and I, and brought my dad, Arthur Bear. The Bears are buried right over there, and the Massays are here. And my dad kept saying, this isn't it. They moved everybody. And I said, no, it isn't, Daddy. This is the cemetery. No, and those trees were little bitty at the time. They were about this big around. He said, so he left here in 1907. He was born in Clinton and left and moved out to Panhandle. He said, those trees weren't there. And I said, Daddy, those trees can get this big in 1 year. You know, and it just didn't want to work for him. Well, everything's backwards. And I said, so we came through the entrance again, and I said, okay, here's great-great-granddad Massey. Read that. Yeah, I knew that. Got home, everybody at the Lions Club said, well, I understand you went back to your old home place. Yeah, I tried to show the boys where it was, but they just argued with me. Anyway, I'm real pleased that Devin asked me, if you would, please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, bless this group here gathered, protect us, and we appreciate all the thanksgivings and the pleasures that you have given us thus far. When we disperse today, please guide, guard, and direct us to our proper homes, places of abode. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, I'm up.
Yeah, it's your turn. Yeah. And would you tell us how you relate?
So, James Madison Massey's oldest son was Lawson Massey. My great-great-great-grandpa. His oldest daughter was Bertha Massey Yates, my great-great-grandmother. And then her oldest son was Charlie Yates, my great-grandfather. His oldest daughter was Marie Yates Williams, my grandmother. And that's my mom, Charlotte. So, I'm going to read a biography I've prepared of James Madison Massey. James Madison Massey was born on April 12, 1824 in Haywood County, North Carolina, near Waynesville, to Nicholas Massey and Lavinia Hayes. James Madison Massey had an older brother named Jacob Hayes Massey, and eventually had younger siblings named Lucinda Jane Massey Collins, Daniel Alexander Massey, Samuel Grant Massey, and William McDowell Massey. The Massey family had come to America sometime before 1645. Nicholas Massey's father was John Massey, and Lavinia Hayes' father was Jacob Hayes. He was a native of Germany who came to America as a boy. The Massey family fought against the British in the American Revolutionary War. Nicholas Massey served in the War of 1812 and lived to the age of 93. James Madison Massey had the blood of a pioneer and a fighter coursing through his veins. Texas won its independence from Mexico in 1836 and was its own country until it was annexed by the United States in 1845. Texas became the 28th state, but Mexico was not willing to give up Texas without a fight because Mexico did not recognize the treaties of Velasco, which were signed by Mexican President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna after his defeat at the Battle of San Jacinto. The Mexican-American War ensued when Mexican troops attacked Americans who had entered the disputed territory. James Madison Massey enlisted on March 14, 1847 as a private for Company K of the 1st Regiment of the North Carolina Volunteers. He was described as 23 years of age, 6 feet tall with fair complexion, blue eyes, and dark hair. The Americans had a decisive victory in Mexico City and won the war. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo required the Mexican cession of the future states of California, Nevada, and Utah, and parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. The treaty also settled the issue of Texas becoming recognized as an American state, and the border was set at the Rio Grande River. James Madison Massey served from the mouth of the Rio Grande to Buena Vista, being mostly on outpost duty. He mustered out back in North Carolina on August 7, 1848, and then moved to Tennessee in 1849. James Madison Massey is listed in the 1850 federal census as living with the James and Nancy Bryson family as a farmer. Sometime in 1851, James Madison Massey married Lovis R. Aiken in Marion County, Tennessee. Unfortunately, the Marion County Courthouse burned in 1922, so the exact date of their marriage is unknown. James Madison Massay became a father on June 21st, 1852, when Parthenia Jane Massay was born. In 1854, the Massay family loaded up and headed for Texas. On the way, the next Massay child was born on New Year's Day, 1854. Her name was Britannia Annie, or Britty Massay. In March 1854, Lovis Massay passed away from complications of childbirth and was buried in Wright's Chapel Cemetery in northeast Texas near the Red River. Britannia probably would have died, except a female slave, whose name was unknown, was also with child and wet nursed Britannia in addition to her own child. James Madison Massay was a widower at age 29, and he had 2 young daughters to care for. So he found some good land and got to work farming and looking for a new wife. James Madison Massay fell in love with Margaret Ann Smith, daughter of Dennis Grady Smith and Anna Margaret Burnett, and they're buried right there. The couple were married September 22nd, 1856 in Fannin County, Texas. At that time he was 32 and she was 21. James Madison Massay made his first purchase of land in Hunt County in 1858. The Massay family lived in a small community about 3 miles east of Caddo Mills near Greenville that is now known as Clinton, Texas. Clinton was originally named Masseyville after James Madison Massay, but the railroads simply called it Worms on their maps due to the huge earthworms, 3 feet long and as big around as a pencil, that they found while digging in the area. The name Clinton came from an official of the Cotton Belt Railroad, which came later on, and the area was eventually renamed for him. James Madison Massay donated the land for this cemetery around 1859 when an unknown dead cowboy was found under a nearby tree. On June 7, 1859, Margaret Ann Smith Massay gave birth to her first child and to James Madison Massay's firstborn son, Lawson Burke Massay. By the 1860 federal census, James Madison Massay was 36 years old and on his second marriage with 2 daughters and a son who were all living on the farm in Hunt County. An early Christmas gift arrived in 1860. Dennis Newberry Massay was born on December 23rd. 1860 was an election year and Abraham Lincoln won the presidency. America was sharply divided over issues of slavery and states' rights. 13 southern states broke away from the Union to form the Confederate States of America. The American Civil War, or the War between the states, began in 1861. All of James Madison Massay's brothers signed up to fight for the Confederacy, except for his brother Sam Massay, who became a Union scout. Texas only had a few small battles, while most of their fighting occurred farther east. Texas supplied a lot of men to go and fight for the Confederacy, which left many areas without the men and weapons to defend themselves properly from Plains Indians, which would be Comanches, Apaches, and Kiowas, attacks. The Texas Rangers were the best means of frontier defense in the Civil War. Texas was still very much a frontier to the north and west during that time. On July 20th, 1861, James Madison Massay enlisted as a private in the Texas State Troops, or Texas Rangers, Company for Beat Number 8, Hunt County 14th Brigade, under Captain James M. Huey. The original muster roll at the Texas State Library and Archive is dated July 24th, 1861. Before the Civil War, there was no organization by the official title of Texas Rangers. Between the Mexican War and the Civil War, they were called out in emergencies, sometimes for periods of up to 6 months, but never became a permanent institution until 1874. The tendency has been to picture them as an elite fighting body when they actually consisted of citizens who lived in frontier counties, men who by necessity learned the art of plains warfare from their enemies. For the most part, they were an undisciplined group of civilian volunteers who would follow only men they trusted and who had proved themselves in battle. As these Rangers or Minutemen companies were usually called out only in emergencies, the Indian raid normally had already taken place. The Rangers' job was then to pursue and, if possible, destroy the retreating enemy. The withdrawal of U.S. federal troops from the frontier of Texas at the start of the Civil War required the Texas Rangers to become a more organized group and the men recruited to join had to be over 18 but under 45 years of age, a good rider, a marksman, a person of good moral character, and not a professional gambler or habitual drunkard. Each man was to provide his own horse, saddle, blankets, canteen, 6-shooting pistol, and if possible a shotgun or rifle. On March 25, 1862, James Madison Massay was elected captain of the Texas Ranger Company for Beat Number 8, Hunt County 14th Brigade. Margaret Ann Smith Massay gave birth to a daughter named Amanda Featherstone Massay. She's buried right there. In November of 1862. In November of 1864, James Madison Massay's Texas Ranger Company was absorbed into Captain Rutherford's company of Texas Infantry, which was composed primarily of former members of the Texas State Troops. His Confederate service was for a short time and was mostly in Texas. He was most likely doing the same job that he had done in the Texas Rangers, but they were funded by the Confederate government rather than the state of Texas. Rounding up deserters who would hide in bushes and steal from local families in North Texas, and some deserters even helped Comanches on a raid or two, had to be rounded up and forced back into service or dealt with as a traitor. It is possible that James Madison Massay would have participated in the deserter roundup of the northern subdistrict of Texas. Another son named Henry Marion Massay was born January 4, 1865. The Civil War ended in May of 1865 and Southern Reconstruction began. Another daughter was born on September 22, 1867, named Sarah Elizabeth Massay. James Madison Massay re-registered to vote in 1867 after having lost his voter registration status as a Confederate. Then, on September 14, 1869, a son named Binkley M. Massay was born. James Madison Massay's daughter, Bridie Annie, had married Andrew Jackson Milam, who's a nephew of the Texas Revolutionary hero Ben Milam, on December 19, 1869. Young Binkley Massay was struck by lightning and died on July 4, 1870, before his first birthday. By the 1870 federal census, James Madison Massay was 46 years old, living with his second wife, and had a total of 8 children and 1 son-in-law. On July 15, 1874, Margaret Ann Smith Massay gave birth to her final child, a son named James May Massay. In 1930, James May Massay became a Texas Ranger like his father. By the 1870s, James Madison Massay had over 800 acres of land within his fences, with 400 acres in cultivation and some lying out. He had large amounts of livestock, and according to the registry bands at the Hunt County Clerk's Office, his cattle brand was DAM. It is unknown why that was his brand. He was known as an industrious and successful farmer. James Madison Massay donated the land and right-of-way for the Cotton Belt Railroad to go through his land. He was highly esteemed in Hunt County. At some point during the 1870s, a group photo was made of the Clinton Community Picnic with many Massay and Milam family members in attendance, and possibly some Pyle family relatives too. This is the only known photo of James Madison Massay until our cousin told me he's got some more, so we're looking forward to seeing those. James Madison Massay was elected as a Hunt County Commissioner of Precinct Number 2 for 5 terms in 1876, 1878, 1880, 1882, and 1886. He ran in 1884 but lost by a 2-vote margin. Every vote counts. Amanda Milam White remembered that her grandfather would take a sack lunch with him to the commissioners' court meetings, and he would walk all the way there along the railroad tracks. Both of James Madison Massay's parents, Nicholas and Lavinia Massay, died in 1880 in North Carolina. James Madison Massay was 56 years old by the 1880 federal census and was still farming in Clinton. By this time, he was also a grandfather to several grandchildren, including his namesake, James Madison Milam. There was a 1-room building in the middle of the cemetery known as Massay School, which was named for James Madison Massay, who was known by the community as Uncle Jim Massay. The teacher of the school was Harvey Moses Pyle, who was an uncle to James Madison Massay's daughter-in-law. His oldest son, Lawson, had married Julie Alma Pyle. Everybody's cross-eyed now. 1900 federal census, James Madison Massay is listed as a 76-year-old living with his wife Margaret, son James May, daughter-in-law Teresa, and two nephews, William and Mont Massay. James Madison Massay's brother, Sam, the Union Scout, had a son named Grant Massay, who worked 6 days a week away from home for the railroad in North Carolina. Grant had an issue with a particular man in his hometown, and that man's way of getting back at Grant was to sleep with his wife while he was away. To make a long story short, Grant wound up killing his wife's lover out of self-defense, and he came to Texas to hide out with his Uncle James. The two boys in the 1900 census were Grant's sons, who Grant had gone back to North Carolina to get and take them back to his Uncle James' place in Texas. But the law followed him and brought him back to North Carolina for trial. There's more on that story in the Sam Massay book if anybody's interested. Clara Massay Bear, daughter of Lawson Massay, remembered that her grandfather, James Madison Massay, would always wash his feet before he went to bed, and he always cleared his throat before speaking. He was also very religious and always sat on the front row of the Methodist Church at every meeting that he was able to attend. He was also a prominent member of his grange. James Madison Massay passed away on March 25, 1901, at the age of 76. He was buried in the Clinton Cemetery. His obituary that was published on March 29, 1901 in the Greenville Messenger reads, J.M. Massay, a pioneer and highly respected citizen, died at his home near Clinton Monday afternoon of paralysis. He suffered the first stroke of the disease more than a year ago, since which time he's been a helpless invalid. He was about 72 years of age, 45 years of which had been spent in the community in which he died. He was a good citizen and a Christian gentleman, full worthy of the esteem he enjoyed. And his death, while not unexpected, was nonetheless deeply deplored, and those bereaved have the heartfelt sympathy of the entire community. James Madison Massay was a true public servant and deserved the respect, honor, and gratitude of not only the community of Clinton, but Hunt County and the state of Texas as well, as all of the hundreds and hundreds of his living descendants, as would all of the hundreds and hundreds of his living descendants who would not have existed without him. That's him. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you. So up next is Ralph Wadsworth. If you want to come up and give us a few words about the former Texas Ranger Association.
It's an honor to be here for me, and I represent the former Texas Ranger Association out of Fredericksburg. I've served office in various for the last several years, and last year made me president of the former Texas Ranger Association. So that's an honor to be here. It started in 1897. The former Ranger Rip Ford thought they ought to have a former Ranger Association, so it formed in 1897, and they've had annual meetings ever since across Texas. And a few years ago, we started honoring former Rangers, like our friend here. And I think right now, we're somewhere between 700 and 800 former Rangers that have been honored with before the ceremony. And I probably have participated in 35 or 40 of them across the state. Former Texas Ranger Association is open to membership for any lineal descendant of a Texas Ranger. I normally would have applications, but it didn't take time to rank any. But the office in Fredericksburg is available. It's listed in the phone book, and so if you desire membership in the association, we appreciate your interest. I appreciate you being here. Mentioned Don Anderson. He and I were both Rangers in Company B. Company B is headquartered in Garland on the east side of Dallas. I was originally responsible for Denton County when I moved back from Houston. But when Don joined us, Don went to Denton for a year or two, maybe longer, then he came back to Greenville. So, but it's an honor for us to be here, and appreciate being there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I've asked my mom and my cousin from Idaho, Martha Cook, to come up and help me unveil the cross. Mom was the one who joined and did the membership under the former Texas Ranger Association and did the application to get the cross. And Martha was kind enough to pay for the shipping. And she was my editor on the biography, so we just. Okay, and then Martha's going to read the Texas Ranger prayer.
I hope you can all hear me. I'm a Grange member too, and my Grange say they can hear me pretty well when I get going.
Oh, tell them how you're.
James Madison Massay is my second great-grandfather. His oldest son Lawson was my great-grandfather. He married Julie Pyle, so a lot of the people here are Pyles and Massays. And Lawson's, one of his two younger daughters, the last from the youngest, was Margaret or Maggie, Aunt Maggie to a lot of you. Maggie Massay, who married a John Cook and ended up homesteading in northeastern New Mexico, and later moved to Boise, Idaho, where her son, Clyde Cook, my father, was ranching. So I'm just real happy to be here today. I've learned more about James Madison Massay in the last 3 months than I ever knew before. I've been to the cemetery before and seen the graves, so this is great. So this is the Ranger prayer. O God, whose end is justice, is all our stay. Be near and bless my mission as I go forth today. Let wisdom guide my actions. Let courage fill my heart. And help me, Lord, in every hour to do a ranger's part. Protect when danger threatens. Sustain when trails are rough. Help me to keep my standard high and smile at each rebuff. When night comes down upon me, I pray thee, Lord, be nigh. Whether on lonely scout or camped under the Texas sky. Keep me, O God, in life, and when my days shall end, forgive my sins and take me in. For Jesus' sake, amen.
Thank you. I will. Yeah. Mom, come on up. So, when James Madison Massay passed away in 1901, at the funeral they gave a little cardboard card to remember him by. And on that card, there's a couple of copies still in the family. There's this little poem, and Mom's going to read it.
Loving friends, weep not for me, I long to be at rest. How happy, happy I shall be when pillowed on my Savior's breast. Oh, the hope is sweet, that soon in heaven we may meet. There we shall all be happy, rest from pain and sorrow free.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody real quick, we've got a sign-in sheet up here just so I know who all was here. If you just write your name, how you're related, or what organization you're with. And then a gentleman from the Clinton Cemetery is here. He wants to get all the relatives signed up for the mailing address so we can help fund the cemetery to keep it nice and clean and everything. So be sure you see him or get your contact information to me and I'll pass it along. We want to thank the former Texas Rangers Association and the Texas Ranger Reenactor volunteers for coming out. And a special thanks to the Sons of the Confederate Veterans for coming out. And they've gone around the cemetery and flagged every Confederate grave here. So they'll be doing a little presentation after the former Texas Rangers reenactors do their salute.
here today. Glad the good Lord blessed us with a little cloud cover. Otherwise, it'd been awful hot today. Good wind, breeze blowing. We're here to honor James Massay today. My name is Mike Pierce. I'm the commander of the Lieutenant Alexander Cameron Camp in Greenville, Texas. I'd like to open up the ceremony with a pledge to the Confederate flag.
I salute the Confederate flag with affection, reverence, and undying devotion to the cause for which it stands.
Thank you, George. Little history here. The Sons of Confederate Veterans are a direct descendant of the United Confederate Veterans, a voluntary organization of many of the veterans who fought so gallantly for the Confederacy during the Civil War. The Sons of Confederate Veterans was organized in Richmond, Virginia in 1896 at the convention of the United Confederate Veterans. Initially, the Sons of Confederate Veterans was charged with two duties. These were, one, assisting the United Confederate Veterans and its elderly members at their conventions and other activities, and two, ensuring that the true history of the Confederacy and its struggle to be accurately documented. The Sons of Confederate Veterans continues to exist and grow as a historical, patriotic, and non-political organization dedicated to ensuring that a true history of the 1861-1865 period is preserved. It is driven by the charge given to the Sons of Confederate Veterans by Lieutenant General Stephen Dill Lee at the 1906 National Convention. That charge is as relevant today as it was over 100 years ago. We'll now read the charge to the Sons of Confederate Veterans.
To you, Sons of Confederate Veterans, we submit the vindication of the cause for which we fought. To your strength will be given the defense of the Confederate soldier's good name, the guardianship of his history, stimulation of his virtues, perpetuation of his principles, of those principles which he loved, which made him glorious, and which he also cherished.
Thank you, Mark. We are here today to honor James Madison Massay, who was not only a brave and honorable Texas Ranger, but was also a Confederate soldier. There are 3 other Confederate soldiers buried in this cemetery. We have them flagged if you want to look at the graves. We would like to honor the memory of all of these fine men by a salute, reading each soldier's name and the service history, followed by the tolling of the bell. We will conclude with a 3-volley rifle salute. James Madison Massay, Rutherford's Texas Infantry. William Breachin, Company K, 19th Texas Infantry. J.P. Morrison, Company E, 41st Tennessee Infantry. Young Monroe Sellers, Company F, Alabama Infantry. We'll now do the gun salute. Troops ready? Aim! Fire! Reload! Troops ready? Aim! Fire! Reload! Ready? Aim! Fire! We want to thank everybody for being here today and thank the Massay Ancestors family for allowing us to come and honor this great man. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank everybody for coming. There's some pictures to look at, some books. Be sure you sign in and get with the cemetery. And I want to do some group pictures real quick. I'd like one of all the Sons of the Confederate Veterans over here, and then one of all the Texas Rangers, and then one of all the family.